What's the difference between ATA, PATA, and IDE? If I am not mistaken, these names all refer to the same technology. Are there any differences between them? If not, why does this technology go by so many different names?
IDE, Integrated Drive Electronics, was the original name, then they standardized on ATA, Advanced Technology Attachment, as being a broader standard that included additions like CD-ROMs and such. When SATA, serial ATA, came out, people started using PATA, parallel ATA, to refer to the older parallel connected bus, those using ribbon cable, to be more specific than the term ATA, which can refer to either. Both are part of the ATA standard, and use the same logical command sets, but SATA obviously has a different electrical interface. Both types of drives, SATA and PATA, are IDE devices. Source: PC Mag.
I found an interesting article here that explains the difference. It appears that it was actually called ATA, but IDE and PATA were just different names used by different branding. It just goes to show how much competition and money there is amongst computer-related companies to have their particular brand of the current technology accepted as the world standard. However, they all dipped out as plain old ATA became the accepted term. Once SATA was developed, it was named PATA. All in all, the ATA standard has moved through 7 recognized phases: ATA 1, 2, 3, etc., and in 2001 Stage 7 ATA hard drives came on the market, commonly called Ultra ATA 133. These could make data transfer rates of up to 133 MB per second, megabytes per second. ATA 7 is thought to be the last stage of development before serial ATA took over. At this stage, to make clear the distinction between ATA and the newer SATA standard, the older ATA standard was redefined and named Parallel ATA, or PATA.
Integrated Drive Electronics was the original marketing name to differentiate from when the electronics were on a separate board, SD506 and SD. But for example, SCSI drives also have their controllers integrated. So the standard was named Attachment for the IBM PC/AT, which in turn meant Advanced Technology, but ATA is not Advanced Technology Attachment. But IDE and ATA are synonymous. ATA is a better term. ATA became PATA, parallel, to differentiate from SATA, serial.
I will try to give complete answer. At the time of PCAT 286, there was only one bus in the system. This bus was called System Bus or Host Bus. Nowadays it is known as ISA. All devices, including CPU itself, were connected to this bus: memory controller, floppy disk controller, keyboard controller, timer, etc. First HDDS consisted of 2 parts: disk controller, connected to ISA, and dumb disk. Controller, like any ISA-based device, was accessed by programmer using I/O and memory regions. It presented disk as blocks using head cylinder sector geometry and handled low-level things, like moving drive heads, by itself. ISA and GT, controller and GT, cable and GT, dumb_disk. Compaq produced laptops at that time. They installed simple device to ISA bridge. This device is called Host Bus Adapter, HOA. Then, they moved controller to the disk drive and connected it to HOA with ribbon cable. Please note that HOA is not controller, it is just an adapter. Controller was installed in disk. So, you can say that disk controller was connected to ISA with small aid of adapter. ISA_bus per ribbon cable and GT, controller underscore and underscore disk. That was the first time controller was integrated to disk, so they called it IDE, Integrated Disk Electronics. Later on, manufacturers created standard called that attachment, IDE, that described both physical connection, ribbon cable, and programming interface of controller, registers and their semantics. It is called that attachment because it was about attached disks to IDE bus, ISA. Every IDE device is IDE. But pre-IDE devices are not IDE, although every IDE device produced after early 90s is IDE. In the middle of 90th architecture changed. Instead of one bus they connected CPU to chip called North Bridge with bus called Front Side Bus. North Bridge was then connected to chip called South Bridge. They integrated IDE and ISA and keyboard controller and other low-speed devices into South Bridge. IDE stopped being IDE attachment at that time. But name remained. IDE had one problem. It was parallel. Each data line resided on separate wire. There were 40 wires in original IDE. Big number of lines limit speed because of crosstalk. First, they solved it by adding additional lines connected to ground, so IDE 4 Plus used 80 lines. But ultimate solution was to move to serial bus. It increased controller complexity, but gave engineers ability to increase speed. So, they created serial version of IDE called SATA. From then moment, old version was named Parallel IDE or PADA. PADA is IDE. And SATA is IDE. But when people talk about IDE they almost always talk about old, parallel version of IDE, PADA. SATA can be IDE compatible, but they developed new version of PA called the C. Advanced Host Controller Interface. A C is controller, not an adapter from now. From that moment, we can say that SATA is Rigwell bus, just like USB. That has two controllers, one controller resides on C, somewhere near communication hub, this is how they call South Bridge now. Another one resides inside of disk, but this is complete different story.
If you want to support that channel, please consider subscribing.